A row over delayed COVID-19 vaccine deliveries between the European Union and AstraZeneca has deepened. The EU has now published a copy of its contract with the drug maker. EU Chief Ursula von der Leyen says the contract contains binding orders and is crystal clear. She's demanded an explanation for the holdup. The EU says AstraZeneca can only deliver 31 million of the 100 million doses expected by the end of March. The drug maker has blamed production problems on Belgium. At the same time, the EU is threatening to block vaccine exports, and that could affect the flow of Pfizer-BioNTech doses into the UK. The bloc is expected to publish the criteria for blocking exports in the next few hours. Lucy Hoff joins us live from Brussels for more on this. Lucy, tell us this reaction by the EU. They've come out very strongly against AstraZeneca.
They sure have, and that extraordinary chain of events that you were just outlining there this week, as this row has really escalated, and that contract that was signed off between the EU and AstraZeneca, now published around an hour ago, with AstraZeneca's permission to do that, although it is a heavily redacted document, not least the information about the cost and delivery targets, which have been sort of put away in black from that document. But what we do have some useful information about is the definition of this term, best reasonable efforts.
A row
was signed off between the EU and AstraZeneca, now published around an hour ago, with AstraZeneca's permission to do that, although it is a heavily redacted document, not least the information about the cost and delivery targets, which have been sort of put away in black from that document. But what we do have some useful information about is the definition of this term, best reasonable efforts, that is key to the row between the EU and AstraZeneca. Essentially, what the EU is saying is that the obligations that AstraZeneca signed up to when it signed this contract on delivery targets are crystal clear and binding. So AstraZeneca needs to do everything it can to deliver those targets, regardless of the circumstances around that. But what AstraZeneca is saying is that they signed up to a document to supply those delivery targets as a best reasonable effort, i.e. they weren't binding to those specific numbers. We know that AstraZeneca was supposed to deliver 100 million doses in the first quarter, but the EU is set to receive just around a quarter of that, and that is what has led to this furious row with supply shortages here in Europe. So with this document now out in the open, we will get some more information. There is also reference in this document about the use of UK facilities, which has been another point of contention. The EU is saying that that AstraZeneca should be using facilities not just here in Europe, but also in the UK, in order that AstraZeneca can meet those contractual demands. That has been disputed by AstraZeneca, and it does appear on first reading of that document that there is specific reference to the use of UK facilities that could mean that AstraZeneca has some questions to answer about that.
Well, the EU is also threatening to block vaccine exports. So can they do that?
Well, yes, it seems that this is what they intend to do as a means of basically controlling or having greater scrutiny over what is leaving the bloc in what quantities and when those exports are being shipped out, amid concerns that exports could be affecting the delivery targets that the EU has signed off with pharmaceutical companies like AstraZeneca and Pfizer. This is a mechanism whereby pharmaceutical firms will have to alert authorities in the EU about export deliveries and give the specific quantities. It does give the EU powers potentially to block exports if indeed those deliveries don't meet the criteria, which is being laid out by the European Commission in proposals that are due to be unveiled today. The bill will then be put through it within a matter of hours. It has led to some concern, particularly in the UK, that could lead to shortages outside of the EU. There's been warnings from analysts in the UK saying that this could lead to millions of doses not being delivered to the UK, particularly of the Pfizer-BioNTech shot, that could push back herd immunity targets for British citizens. So a tricky issue, but again, one the EU says that this is not about an export ban, but rather this is a mechanism to allow greater transparency and to perhaps give them that power to limit exports if indeed it will affect the rollout of the vaccine here in Europe.
Yes, and while the wrangling continues on, AstraZeneca's vaccine is due to be approved shortly. That will certainly help to move things along, won't it?
It certainly will, but again, the AstraZeneca vaccine running into some trouble here in Europe with Germany's vaccine committee deciding to block the use of that vaccine for anyone above the age of 65, citing concerns about the lack of data for that older age group in the clinical trials. There has been, again, a bit of a row about this, what that data was that was in the clinical trials, but it does appear that Germany, clearly a powerhouse in Europe, deciding to limit the rollout of that vaccine in their older, more vulnerable, most vulnerable citizens could impact the decision that the European Medicines Agency takes today. We are being told that authorization is likely and that the rollout will begin in the coming days. But again, there is the potential that Germany's decision could impact what is rolled out around Europe.
Okay, thanks for getting us up to speed, Lucy. Lucy Hoff speaking to us from Brussels.
Three European politicians. They speak different languages, but they're all singing the same tune.
L'Union européenne, c'est une véritable épouvante.
Mai rendetlen Európa képtelen megoldásokat találni ezekre a kihívásokra.
Noi andiamo in Europa per ribaltarla questa Europa.
And that's weird, because one belief that unites these nationalist, populist European leaders is that the European Union should be less united. Since the euro crisis of 2009 and the migrant crisis of 2015, these right-wing populist movements have grown in strength and in number.
Európa már most invázió alatt áll. 10 és 10 milliók indulnak meg Európába, Afrikából és a közel-keletről.
His campaign against Muslim refugees won his party 2/3 of the seats in Hungary's general election in 2018. Poland's ruling Law and Justice Party doesn't sound all that different.
Co się dzieje we Francji? Nieustanna awantura, też wprowadzamy szariat.
Law and Justice won an outright majority in 2015. Every European country has its own version. Tomio Okamura is a Czech nationalist politician born in Japan who wants a zero-tolerance policy on immigration.
Nemůžeme si dovolit zaplavit naše země migranty z nepřátelských a nekompatibilních kultur.
It's not clear what this means, but it plays into European fears of what they call an invasion. In other words, immigration.
I would stop immigration of non-Western immigrants immediately.
They all accuse Brussels of behaving like a dictatorship.
Jsme pod totálním tlakem Bruselu a v podstatě jsme ztratili jakoukoliv samostatnost. Těch je celá řada.
Which is ironic, given that they're all running in democratic elections for the EU Parliament. They often speak of a supposed plot by mainstream leaders like Angela Merkel to replace Europeans with lower-paid migrants.
Sono convinto che l'immigrazione sia un progetto.
Well, hi, everyone. This is our first meeting, and this is being recorded, of course, and we're supposed to post the links to the recordings on the course website. So there was a lot in there, of course. By the way, I should mention, just to make this, this class interesting to you so I don't forget, of course, he is a half Japanese, half Czech politician. He's a Czech citizen, of course. And I noted, I remember that Hyundai has a big factory in Prague in the Czech Republic, which, by the way, has been renamed. It's no longer the Czech Republic, it's Czechia. I guess it's easier to say than Czech Republic. Viktor Orban in Hungary is not covered. Let me see if I can find it here. Unfortunately, Hungary is not covered in the textbook, but Poland is. And so there's a whole chapter on Poland that you'll be reading about Poland. And so you noticed, by the way, of course, that that Czech politician is half Japanese, and also that let's see if I can find this person. He is a leader of the far right party in the Netherlands. He's half Indonesian. One of his parents is from Indonesia, and he's a leader of a far right anti-immigrant party, anti-Islamist party. Geert Wilders. So okay, so that's a brief introduction to get you excited about the course material, to make this living and breathing topic for you. I should mention also, since I'm trying to get you excited about the material, that I should maybe open it. Well, let me show you the textbook that we were using in this class until 2 years ago. The last time I taught this class, which this is the old textbook from published over six years ago. And there's a chapter in this textbook, this old textbook, about Poland. And when you read the chapter in Poland, which was written maybe in 2014, 2015, it celebrates Poland's achievements under the civic platform government of Donald Tusk. Donald Tusk was Prime Minister of Poland at the time that that chapter in this book, the old textbook, was written. And when you read the chapter, it's very self-congratulatory. Like we say in English, it pats Poland on the back. Good job, Poland. Good job, Poland. Because Poland, under civic platform, had succeeded in continuing the economic growth and development of the country. Poland was the only country that did not go into recession, that did not go down in economics in recession during the Great Recession around the whole planet. Poland was the only major economy in Europe, maybe in the whole world, that did not go down. It continued to grow. And so the author of this old chapter, this old textbook chapter on Poland, seems to assume in that chapter that Poland was going to, again, re-elect the Civic Platform, the Civic Platform Party. The Civic Platform Party is the liberal democratic successor to the Solidarity Party that led the resistance to communism. And it didn't. It lost to the Law and Justice Party, this party highlighted here, Law and Justice. Prawo I Sprawiedliwość, that's in Polish. I used to speak Polish. Prawo I Sprawiedliwość. So Law and Justice is peace, P-I-S. So when you read the textbook, which I don't have the copy here because my copy is being photocopied, it mentions Law and Justice, and it puts this in parentheses. P-E-I-S is Prawo I Sprawiedliwość. So it's Law and Justice. They won. And they are a Polish, much more nationalistic party, conservative, traditional, Eurosceptical party, skeptical of the European Union, and putting more and more restrictions on non-traditional lifestyles, of refusing to support gay marriage, for example, or permitting gay or protecting gay LGBTQ people in Poland. They just passed a law to make abortion basically illegal and completely illegal in Poland in all circumstances. In all circumstances. Since after the textbook that we are using came out. And they have been in power ever since 2015, although the presidency has shifted back and forth of Poland. The Prime Minister's office has been controlled by Law and Justice and its allies since 2015 to the present. And so the appeal to Polish nationalism is very clear here. This is the Polish eagle, the white eagle of the Polish flag, not the Polish flag, of the Polish monarchy. When Poland was a monarchy until it was divided up in the end of the 18th century, this white eagle of Poland was part of the symbol of Poland, with a crown. And then when the communists came to power, they removed the crown. When the communists took power in Poland at the end of World War II. And then I was there in Poland in 1989, 1990, when communism fell, and the new government, the democratic government in Poland, put back the crown on the white eagle of Poland. And so the Law and Justice Party, of course, continues to play with that symbol of nationalism, the white eagle with the crown. Here you see. Nationalism, nationalism, nationalism. That's my big topic. I'm all excited about nationalism. Let me go back to the lesson plan and highlight what is the textbook which we are using. And this textbook was published last year. And as far as I can tell, there are 2 textbooks available on Amazon focusing on the European Union's impact on the member states. At least there's 2 competing textbooks. There's, of course, this one, which, of course, is not yet been revised. It's so it's 6 or 7 years old. And then this one, which came out last year before the pandemic, of course. So the book stops discussing current events until early 2000, when Britain leaves the European Union officially in January 31st, 2020. So there's no discussion in this textbook about the pandemic, right? There's no discussion in this textbook about the pandemic. Nevertheless, the book had to come out because the chapters were done and we have to update the books. So I will attempt in the class to update the course material, or at least comment about the impact of the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, on European politics and national politics while we go through the notes that I'm going to post, or I've already started posting for you from each chapter. So this is the book, and it's the 3rd edition published by Oxford University Press, very well-known European Union press. And so you can see they have chapters on Bulgaria. Yay, I spent 15 years in Bulgaria, Poland, Sweden, nothing on, they don't have a chapter on Hungary though. And so the book is being photocopied at, I assume, DocuCopy. The university is supposed to inform me when that book is ready, and the book is not yet. It's supposed to be ready today. So when they send me an email that the photocopies are ready, I will send you an email that the photocopies are ready to be purchased, and also a PDF file of the book, copy of the book, will be made available also online for you on Google Drive. That I'll send you the link to the PDF copy so you can download the PDF copy of the book. Okay, and when that is made available, I am also making available notes of the chapters that I have been taking, and I'm mostly through the book, although not completely. I've been doing this for a number of months, basically rewriting the book in my own words. And I also am making those available. Oh, okay, that reminds me. And so please, if I forget to do something, please let me know. We also need to do the attendance. Yay, attendance. So for week 1, add smart attendance, start smart attendance. So the magic number for you is 585. That's the smart attendance number, 585, as you can see. So please, I will just let that run and let you do the smart attendance and continue on with the presentation. So let me see if I can go back to my, okay, so I'm looking here. Okay, that's why I shut it down. So there you see, and there we all are again there. And so just to make sure that that is working, and that is indeed working. What else, how else to keep you excited about this material? an important point. Why are we covering the material in this course? We have a lot of reasons. We have a lot of motivations for why we're interested in the European Union and its impact on the member states. I already presented one of many motivations to you. I mentioned, for example, that Hyundai has a big auto factory manufacturing plant in Prague, in Czech Republic. So if you are going to pursue an international career, it's most definitely going to probably involve some kind of work with a corporation that has interests in Europe. Hyundai, as I said, has a big manufacturing plant in Prague. And so it's the biggest market in the world. And so South Korea is going to be intensely interested in European Union, and particularly in the member states, because that's where the actual reality of being in the European Union is. You have to deal with Czech bureaucrats. You have to deal with Czech, if you're working for Hyundai, Czech bureaucrats, Czech business people, Czech workers, as well as other workers. So we need to talk about the European Union from the perspective of the member states. But there's other reasons as well why we're interested in the European Union, right? And those reasons include, for example, we're interested in the European Union because the European Union is ultimately also a peace strategy for Europe, a strategy for peace in Europe. And some of you that have had me in the European policymaking class last semester have heard this before, and it's worth repeating again and again and again. European Union is a strategy for peace in Europe after 2 world wars that killed tens of millions of people, saw some of the most horrific crimes in the history of Homo sapiens, like the Holocaust. And the Germans are good people. I mean, the Germans are an educated, good people, yet they produced Hitler, right? United States came as close to moving more and more in the direction of a similar type of, or an analogous form of authoritarian populism under Donald Trump, as reflected, for example, in the January 6, 2001 events in the United States. Those are all manifestations of nationalism. Nationalism. So the European Union is a peace strategy for Europe. And I wanted to highlight, show you, of course, there's a Wikipedia page for just about everything. And so there's also a Wikipedia page for the Nobel Peace Prize given to the European Union. In 2012, the Nobel Peace Prize was awarded to the European Union for over 6 decades, having contributed to the advancement of peace and reconciliation, democracy, and human rights in Europe by unanimous decision in the Norwegian Nobel Committee. So it's considered to be a peace prize. And so here is here's member states of the European Community, as it was called until 1992. Oh, it's a map of the expansion of Europe. So it cycles through here. And the last country added, yes, is Croatia in 2013. Yay, Croatia. And then, of course, Britain left in 2020. There is a chapter in the book on Britain. There is a chapter on Britain. And so you can see Britain joining in 1973, along with Denmark and Ireland, and then it leaves in 2020. Although, what does it mean to leave is a question. So it's a peace strategy for Europe. And I already talked about a peace strategy for Europe. Well, what's the threat to peace? For which the European Union must be an antidote or a solution or a response. And what is the threat to peace in Europe? Nationalism. Nationalism. So when you read the textbook, when you study the textbook and the notes, this is the approach that the countries of the European Union leadership has taken to try to address the challenge of nationalism in Europe. The problem is that I think we still struggle to understand what exactly is this thing called nationalism. I get that sense in the edited textbook that we are using in the class that the authors of those chapters, they don't have a very clear understanding or theoretical conceptualization of what nationalism is. They know it's important, right? You can't explain British Brexit, British leaving the European Union, unless you understand nationalism and British nationalism. So that chapter in the book, I recall, makes some kind of comments about how the British have a feeling or they have an understanding of World War II that is very different from the other countries in the European Union, Germany, France, and Italy. I think I have a framework for understanding nationalism thanks to my good fortune of having studied under a professor who taught me his theory of nationalism. And so some of you have seen this before. This is the book published 20 years ago that has the theoretical framework that addresses nationalism that I use. I'm not asking you to read it. I'm just showing you there is a theoretical framework for understanding nationalism using political psychology and social psychology to understand nationalism. And I think I have a political framework for understanding nationalism and fascism and Nazism, authoritarian populism, Donald Trump's phenomenon in the United States. I think I have it here. And so I'm going to be drawing on political psychology in this textbook, in this book that was published 20 years ago by my dead mentor, Richard Cottam, who died in 1997. And his daughter, Martha Cottam, is an emeritus professor at Washington State University in political science. She retired. She's only my age. She retired. She's an emeritus professor. She finished the book, and it was published 4 years after my mentor's death in 1997. So, and so I am, the point is, I think I have a framework for trying to understand what nationalism is in a way that's analyzable. The authors of your textbook, they are struggling with nationalism. And so let me go through the notes that I have to make sure I go through the notes. And of course, I will post these introductory comments on the book, on the notes from here on the Cyber Campus. So some points. I started off the video before the start of class by getting us warmed up with a video about the COVID-19 pandemic and the case of vaccine nationalism. You see here vaccine nationalism at work here, that Angela Merkel is the retiring prime minister, chancellor. Chancellor is the name for the traditional name for the German prime minister. She's retiring next year. There was some comment that she is refusing to take the AstraZeneca vaccine for COVID-19, and this has all caused a scandal. This has all caused a scandal because people are wondering why did she say she is not taking the AstraZeneca vaccine? AstraZeneca is a British-Swedish vaccine, primarily British, and it says here, Angela Merkel says she won't take AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine. She says, and others, her supporters said that the vaccine has not been proven to be safe for people over 65 years of age, which is highly skeptical statement. I think this is a statement that we can be highly skeptical of that. Nobody has said that in the United States. Nobody has said that anywhere else outside of Europe. Of course, the British are using it all over Britain right now. And so this suspicion is she said it because there is this hostility to Britain because of Brexit. And that AstraZeneca was the first vaccine. AstraZeneca was not the first, but was one of the first vaccines to be developed. And AstraZeneca is not being able to supply the European Union, which Britain left over a year ago, with the amount of doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine that it supposedly promised. So did it promise? Did it not promise? We don't know. They're publishing the contract between AstraZeneca and the European Union, and this is an ongoing story. The point is, you see elements of emotion, hostility, anger, confusion. Now she's saying, I didn't say I'm not going to take the AstraZeneca vaccine. The point is the Europeans are upset. The British are upset. This is nationalism at work. This is nationalism at work in terms of the anger, emotion, simplification of thought, simplicity in thinking that emerges along with emotion and nationalism and emotion and stereotyping, or affect is another word for emotion. They all go together, and you see it at work here. She might not be actually herself a nationalist, But you cannot understand public opinion in a member state of the European Union, at least a big one like Spain or Italy or Poland or Hungary or Germany, as opposed to, Belgium, for example, unless you understand nationalism. You cannot understand public opinion in modern politics unless you understand nationalism. And she reflects that. Her entire professional existence is around winning elections, responding to public opinion, trying to shape public opinion, but being careful about how far to go in trying to shape public opinion. So now she's trying to reconcile these conflicting motivations and needs, and now she's stepping back, and this is Europe who say, I didn't refuse this to take. So here you see vaccine nationalism at work, okay? So in these notes I typed out, just to go on here, we are living in an exciting time amidst the COVID-19 pandemic, exciting in a complicated ways. Why? It is accelerating the pace of social change around the world. The world always changes in our interpersonal relationships, social relationships, our economic relationships with each other, and in our political relationships with each other. But the pace of that change is going faster and faster and faster because of the need to respond to this crisis of the global COVID-19 pandemic. And nationalism emerges as a behavior pattern, not an ideology, as a behavior pattern of Homo sapiens in times of accelerating social change. That's why this time is exciting, for good or bad, right? It just is. Nationalism tends to associate with stereotyping, including and emotion. Nationalism, Homo sapiens tend to perceive the world around them in self-serving. This is another point. Homo sapiens, we are genetically predisposed. Not everybody, not necessarily you or me, but generally, statistically speaking, that we are predisposed to form in-groups versus out-groups, because we achieve our objectives as human beings more readily if we form an in-group. And then we tend to self-identify with that in-group. And by self-identifying with that in-group, we form out-groups. Koreans against Japanese, Americans against Mexicans, if you're an American nationalist racist, Germans against French, Polish against Russians, since this is a European Union class, right? And we want to feel good about our in-group. If I'm French, I want to feel good about France, because if I feel bad about France because France performs badly, or if I feel bad about Germany because the British beat us in getting a vaccine approved, then I'm going to feel bad about myself because I'm a German and I want to feel good about Germany. So I want to compensate in some way, and how I might compensate might be doing something to hurt Britain or AstraZeneca as representative of Britain by saying, I don't take the AstraZeneca vaccine. You insult us, Britain. I mean, they're not saying this, but this is the subtext, that we are insulted by Britain. Britain left the European Union, and Britain saying, see, we were the first country to approve a vaccine on December 8th. And we already got 14% of our population vaccinated. The European Union is just starting their vaccination outlet. Something like 2 or 3% of the European population at most has been vaccinated. We were right. Brexit was right. Brexit was right. European Union bad. European Union bad. And if you're a British, if you're a German person, you might go, "Urgh, urgh." That's called social competition, right? And this is all outlined in, in this textbook. And so Homo sapiens tend to perceive the world in self-serving ways to make them allow themselves to feel good about who they are, so they can do things and act. Sometimes what they might say is, well, okay, well, Britain's got the AstraZeneca vaccine, but BioNTech is a German, Pfizer BioNTech that developed the Pfizer vaccine, that was a German firm. And of course, that means the Germans are better than anybody else, because we all know that the Pfizer BioNTech vaccine is better than AstraZeneca's vaccine. Pfizer BioNTech has 94% effectiveness, whereas AstraZeneca vaccine has only got 62% effectiveness. Social creativity, right? You're getting more people vaccinated, but German science and German production is better, is more. You come up with a different way to think about yourself compared to the other guy that you feel bad towards. You feel bad in relation to yourself, so you can feel good about yourself again. This is called social creativity in thinking, right? And then there's social mobility, social competition, social creativity, and social mobility. I'll talk more about this throughout the semester, right? Social mobility is, well, maybe I'll go to Britain, I'll become British. Assimilate into the outgroup that you think is better than me. Oh, Britain's better than me. I want to go to Britain. I want to be British. Will Britain let me in? Social mobility. And that's okay, but social competition is bad. Social competition is nationalistic competition. It's zero-sum thinking. It can lead to violence, genocide, World War II, right? And so when you read the book, okay, so let me go on here. So we come up with rationalizations, especially politicians. As I already said, we cannot understand public opinion unless we understand nationalism in the modern era. And so to confront the challenge of nationalism, European integration is trying to build alternative, competing individual and collective motivations besides nationalism, focusing on economic and bureaucratic vested interests favoring cooperation and integration. So when you read the book, when you look at the notes that I posted, it should be 2020 there, that I posted on the course website, when you read the chapters talk about how the institutions in Spain and Germany and the institutions in France and in Greece and in Britain, how they have developed and changed as institutions of government, institutions of parties, institutions in regional governments, and it's deep. It's got detail, and it highlights this institutional discussion, because the way to try to counteract the power of nationalism is try to appeal to other motivations that motivate Homo sapiens. It's not just nationalism that motivates me. It's a very powerful motivation, but this also motivates me, money, right? Now, we often see that nationalists will sacrifice money, and they will make themselves believe that Brexit is good. Someone might be saying, if I'm a British nationalist supporting Brexit, a Leave voter for leaving the European Union, but we're going to pay a high economic price. But if I'm a Brexit supporter, militant Leave supporter in Britain, I will go, and I really want to leave the European Union because the European Union is a threat in my perception, in my feeling to British sovereignty of the British nation. I will go, no, it's not true. We'll be better if we leave the European Union. Economically, we will be even better because we won't be tied down by the European Union. We'll be able to move fast, and we'll be able to make more trade deals, and we'll have, in the long run, our economy will be better by leaving the European Union than by staying in the European Union. We'll become, as they said in Brexit campaign, the Singapore on the Thames River, where London is located. You know, Singapore in Asia, that's a hub of world trade and is very dynamic and active. Britain will become the Singapore on the Thames because it won't be tied down by, we make rationalizations, right? We make rationalizations. So we come up with rationalizations so that I can justify and defend doing what I want to do anyway. Whatever you say is not going to change my mind. I don't care if you're an economist, but I got to talk to you, and so I will come up with ways to convince you and me that what I want is good in every way. So I won't admit that Britain will suffer economically by leaving the European Union. I won't admit it. And I'll tell you, we'll become Singapore. This is the kind of, the Singapore and the Thames. This is the kind of rhetoric that was in the Brexit campaign. And the authors of the book on the chapter on Britain, they don't really know how to deal with this, although they know it's really important. I think I know how to deal with it. And so you see, like, for example, I think that there's going to be a strong emphasis on trying to rely upon the ties of the old British Empire, the Commonwealth, relying on ties with India. And that means because the British Empire was the pinnacle of British glory, right? 20% of the of the world's landmass was controlled by the British Empire at one point. And so what has Britain done? Britain has moved to join the Trans-Pacific Partnership, the revised Trans-Pacific Partnership that the United States refused to join under Trump. This is one of his first actions in 2016. It applied last week to join the Trans-Pacific Partnership. And who's in the Trans-Pacific Partnership already? Canada and Australia. Canada and Australia, along with Singapore and New Zealand, other parts of the British Empire, old British Empire. And but the focus in the textbook that we're going to be using is trying to build vested interests by building competing economic and bureaucratic vested interests within European governments, European societies, in European integration, that they vest their careers, their social mobility aspirations, their identities in building a new European identity that also will support substantive social creativity and substantive social mobility for those individual ambitious actors who want to improve their career prospects and also make Poland great again, make Bulgaria great again by modernizing within the European Union. And that's like really important. But the authors of the chapters, they talk about modernization. I don't think they really have a clear grasp on what they know. It's important. Like, it really appeals when you read the chapter on Spain, right? That Europeanization of Spain equates with modernizing Spain. You want to be modern. I want to be modern. Who doesn't want to be modern? Modern is cool. Modern is what we all want to be. We want to be primitive and backward. We don't want to be primitive. We want to be modern, right? And so for Spain, ever since Spain joined the European Union has been a route for becoming cool. I'm being facetious. Modernizing. So that's, but what can we do as leaders of European countries, as decision makers in Europe? What we can do is build upon these and create and develop these vested interests, and that means institutional reform, institutional support. That means responding to integration, encouraging economic actors to build around and support this, invest their own investments. If you're a company in European Union, invest in, if you're a Spanish company, invest in Germany, or you're a German company, invest in Italy. And all of those people that work for those companies will defend Europe and European Union because their careers are tied to it, because they've got investments all over the place. Makes sense, right? But it didn't work in Brexit, right? I mean, British companies were all over the European Union, investing in the European Union, other European Union countries. And in fact, you saw that the big British corporations did not support Brexit. They were against it. The small British companies tended to support Brexit. And so nationalism is powerful. Nationalism will sacrifice economic well-being to defend against a perceived, not necessarily real, but a perceived threat to the nation's sovereignty. And so that is, of course, now, by the way, this, we only have 15 minutes left here. Let me see, there's something else I wanted to show you here. So this vaccine nationalism issue is a really powerful issue right now because of this global pandemic, once in a century event. The European Union appears to be so much slower than Britain in terms of getting vaccines rolled out, approved. I mean, it took a month for the European Union to do what Britain did a month earlier. Every day counts, right? And so this is causing something of a scandal, right? I mean, you see here that this is Europe. This is not the European Union. This is Europe, and so this is Europe. Hungary under Viktor Orban, that's not covered in the textbook. They are approving vaccines. They've approved vaccines from Russia. The European Union has not approved vaccines from Russia. The Sputnik 5 or Sputnik V vaccine. Serbia is a candidate member. Hungary's in the European Union. Serbia is a candidate member, has applied to join the European Union, applied in 2012. It's got all sorts of vaccines. It's done better than anybody else in Europe, in Europe, maybe aside from, maybe even better than Britain, I don't know, in getting people vaccinated, because it has the Russian vaccine, it has Chinese vaccines, as well as AstraZeneca. And it is, but the Russian vaccines and the Chinese vaccines have not been approved yet by the European Union offices in Belgium. And of course, everybody's saying, well, the European Union is slowing everything down. It's bad. So we're at an interesting crisis test case for the European Union, and Angela Merkel knows it. Everybody knows it. Okay, and some people, this country, Hungary, for example, you saw highlighted, has been described by Freedom House, which is an American government-funded organization. It's a member of the European Union. It's no longer considered to be a democracy, according to Freedom House. Freedom House here, you can see, here's the Wikipedia entry for Freedom House. I just wanted to show you that there's a Wikipedia entry. I attended a presentation, this person, that's the wrong one. This person made a presentation, if I can find it here. Where is it? Freedom House declared that Hungary is no longer a democracy. It's a member of the European Union. European Union is supposed to be about defending democracy. It's no longer a democracy, according to Freedom House. So, however Freedom House defines what democracy, you see Hungary, it's now considered to be a transitional hybrid regime by the centralization of power under Viktor Orban in Hungary. It's there with Montenegro, maybe not quite as bad as Russia. Russia, you can see, is down here. Of course, I wouldn't, so that's Hungary. But the European Union is supposed to be about defending democracy. Here's a quote from Jean-Claude Juncker when he was president of the European Union. He greeted Viktor Orban, Prime Minister of Hungary, as, "Hello, dictator." This woman, a professor who prepared this presentation, Professor Shepley, she says the European Union is a great risk. She's concerned, she thinks that authoritarian populists are going to be winning. They've won in Poland, they've won in Hungary, that they might win next year in election in France. Marine Le Pen, the leader of the Rally for the Republic, might well defeat Emmanuel Macron next year in French elections for president. She said a couple weeks ago in her presentation, where she presented these slides that I'm showing you now. So we're running low on time here, and so we didn't have our 2-hour class on Monday, but we will have a 2-hour class on next Monday. But I wanted to another reason to get you excited about discussing the European Union is because it's considered to be a peace strategy for Europe, right? And so this has been attractive to other regions of the world, including East Asia, Africa. The African Union was modeled on the European Union as a success story in Europe for supposedly for bringing peace to Europe. There has been discussions for years now in Asia about an East Asian Union, which would presumably involve Korea or China and Japan. And one of the main proponents of this has been former Prime Minister of Japan, Yukio Hayamoto, who has been apologizing, not as the actual prime minister, but the Hatoyama is his name. Hatoyama, going around to, I think he went to Seoul. Yes, he went to Seoul. He went to Seoul in 2015, former prime minister apologizing for Japan's crimes during during its occupation. He went to China and did the same thing, and mimicking what Willy Brandt, the socialist prime minister of Germany did in 1971, going to Warsaw and falling on his knees in communist Poland to appeal for forgiveness, to beg for forgiveness for Germany's crimes in World War II at the Jewish Ghetto Uprising Memorial in Warsaw, which, Poland lost about 20% of its population, died during World War II. 1 in 5 of the population died in Poland in World War II. Not just because of Germans, but also because of the Soviets invading also in 1939. Here you see Hatoyama meeting with the victims of the bombing. So he's purposely mimicking what Willy Brandt did in 1971. But he's the former prime minister. Willy Brandt did this when he was the chancellor of Germany. He's doing it when he's after he stepped down. So he's been promoting this East Asian community. So as you read these chapters in the book, on an East Asian, on the European Union, imagine trying to do in Japanese society, in South Korean society, in Taiwan society, in Chinese society, what you read about in reading about what has happened in Spanish government and society, in German and French government and society, in terms of Europeanization, in terms of the development of government bureaucracies, government administrations, government political parties of these countries in Europeanizing. How can that ever happen? Well, how could that happen in South Korea, in Japan, in Taiwan, in China, in North Korea, in Vietnam? I mean, whatever you imagine an Asian community, or maybe outside, maybe the Quad, right? The Japanese are promoting a Quad of democracies, which I assume the Quad means 4 in Latin, right? Which is Australia, Japan, India, and I think maybe the 4th nation is United States because of the conflict between Japan and South Korea these days. They don't want to talk about South Korea. I mean, if you're going to try to copy or learn from the European Union, that's why we read the textbook that we're using, right? Because this is the essence of Europeanization, is described in the book as best as those authors can. Okay, so let's briefly talk about the notes in that chapter, which are already on the Catholic University of Korea website, along with the syllabus. And let me also open the syllabus while I'm here. There's the syllabus. So it's, chapter 1, the European Union's member states, an overview. They provide in the book a discussion of the book and the history of the study of the European Union in relation to the states of the European Union. So they provide you with some history. So I highlighted in yellow some of the points to highlight here, but of course, we only got 6 minutes left in the class, 7 minutes. So you see here, the European Union has distinctive institutions: the European Commission, the Parliament, the Court of Justice, or the Court of the Justice of the European Union, or CJEU. The member states remain key actors. That's a critical point. They are the key actors. The member states of the European Union, in the drive for Europeanization, they are the key actors. Not the only actors, but they are the key actors, right? Not the European Commission. These are all essential actors, but the key driving actors are the member states. They remain key actors in the European Union policymaking process and EU governance. Simultaneously, the EU has significant effects on the member states, the sum of which are labeled Europeanization. So I will skip over some of this because there's some discussion about the history of the study of the European Union's impact on the member states, on European integration. And this has led to the focus in this book, the third wave, the third phase of theorizing the Europeanization research agenda, which is the central focus of this book. We are looking again at the impact of Europeanization and its relationship to the member states. And this again reemphasized the impact of the leading role of the European Union member states, reflected in the rise of the European Council in deciding what the European Union will do, in guiding, steering the European Union. So in the pandemic, it was all the European Council, European Council, European Council, European Council, giving tasks to the European Commission, giving tasks and coordinating with the European Central Bank, And that there was a precursor to that with the Great Recession. It was, again, the European Council. The European Council is the formal name for the meeting of the heads of state and government. It's the meetings of the prime ministers and presidents of the member states. And Ursula von der Leyen is the president of the European Commission, but she serves as the chief servant of the member states. She orchestrates and oversees, she's like the prime minister for the collective head of the European Union, which is the European Council. She's the European Council's prime minister. So she does what she's told to do. And she gives feedback to the European Council, like any good executive branch does. And but in terms of seeing how the European Union member states grow and develop, like, are we going to see the development of ever a United States of Europe, as like we have the United States of America, a federal Europe? What will that look like? I mean, we have differences among the states of the United States, but they're nowhere near, well, I shouldn't say that. I mean, but there's still significant differences among the states of the United States, but not, I would say, to the degree you see still among the European Union member states among themselves. They are not, their institutions of the Spanish government, of the German government, of the French state are not all moving to become the same. No, they are being affected by Europeanization. They are elaborating and developing, but they're elaborating and evolving and developing along their own historical paths in order to achieve common objectives. But they're doing it in the Spanish way. Europeanization happens in the Spanish way. Europeanization happens in a German way. Europeanization happens in a French way. Europeanization happened in a British way. So much, but the British nationalist reaction was to leave the European Union. But we all know that European Union is 45% of Britain's trade with the rest of the world. And Britain is a trading state. It is a trading state. So will Britain continue to Europeanize? Well, maybe, we don't really know. Switzerland is not part of the European Union. Is Switzerland Europeanized? Maybe. I think there is. You could say that Switzerland is part of Europe. Norway is not part of the European Union, but it is part of NATO. Britain is not part of the European Union now, but it's still part of NATO. Is Norway European? Maybe, I guess. There are not simple answers to those questions. It depends on what you're interested in studying. And we're interested in peace. That means we're interested in dealing with nationalism. And it can jump up and shock and disrupt like it did in European Union and those in Brexit. And those of us who think that politics, world politics, domestic politics is all about money, have to explain how, while all of the vested economic interests in Britain among the big multinational corporations were opposed to Brexit, the big companies with all their big money, all of their public relations firms, all of their advertising budgets still could not keep Britain in the European Union. You Marxists who think it's all about money have to explain that. If all of the big, rich, oligarchical capitalists in Britain were opposed to European Brexit, why did it still happen? So we only have 1 minute left. So we'll focus on state institutions, public policies, political forces, including parties, and we're going to focus not just on the governments, we're going to focus on regional governments, regional institutions in the member states. We're going to focus on parties within the member states, government agencies within the member states. We're going to talk about, and we're going to talk about some theoretical frameworks for this, but we're almost out of time. We will meet on Monday, and I will post this weekend the notes for chapter 2. And also I will ask you to submit a paragraph on Wednesday responding to the notes on chapter 2 after I post them. Does anybody have any questions at this time? Okay, if you don't have any questions, I'm recording this. Now I'm going to save the recording and post the link to the Cyber Campus site so you can see it forever, okay? And I think the nice thing about YouTube, one of the nice things is that YouTube also, I think, will automatically start to set up the video presentation that I post on YouTube and link to the Cyber Campus site. It'll provide translation services. Of course, these notes also, you can download them and submit them to a website, and they will be translated into Korean language. When you get this Cyber Campus, when you get this PDF file copy of the book, I think you can convert it into a text file and translate it into Korean if you need to. Okay? So don't be afraid of the material. Don't be afraid of the material. Okay? If there are no other questions, I'm going to stop now. Okay? And no questions? Okay. See you on Monday in class. We will meet in class. Okay? I think in what's the syllabus say in room K? Oh, I think it's K360. Let me check here because the syllabus I had to submit before. So if I go to Cyber Campus and yeah, K360 on Monday. Okay, see you then. Bye.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Bye. Okay.
Thank you. See you then.